Have you ever walked away from a woman, feeling like you just lost a battle you never even knew you were fighting? She never raised her voice, never gave a direct order, yet somehow, she steered the conversation, set the tone, controlled the outcome, and you're left wondering, how did she do that? This is the kind of domination no man is taught to see, because it doesn't come in the form of force. It doesn't wear armor, it wears perfume. It sits with crossed legs and unshaken confidence. It smiles, while pulling strings you don't even know are there. Modern men are trained to look for confrontation, but what they get is quiet manipulation, a slow, subtle erosion of boundaries, a power game that plays out in silence, with body language, timing, suggestion, withdrawal. Not one word of it aggressive, but all of it effective. She doesn't say, move. She leans in. She doesn't say, prove yourself. She pulls back. And without realizing it, you start chasing, explaining, apologizing, obeying. This is the silent war of polarity, the battlefield of invisible dominance. And the reason most men lose is because they don't even know the war has started. In this video, we're exposing it all, from the subtle body cues, to the emotional power plays, to the psychological tactics used to disarm men who lack self-possession. This is not about blaming women. This is about waking up as a man, because the power she holds over you only exists when you abandon your own. Let's begin. What if the most powerful form of control never required a single word? Most men are trained to listen to what a woman says, but the real game, it happens in what she doesn't say. When a woman looks away at just the right moment, when she gives you a faint smile, then turns cold, when she walks past you slowly, only to ignore you the second you engage, that's communication. Not verbal, but primal. This is the language of dominance, subtle, instinctual, and devastatingly effective on men who only speak logic. Her body leans in, your heart races, her eyes dilate, your confidence spikes. Then she withdraws, and you chase. You're not even sure what you're chasing, but something inside you feels unsettled. And that's the point. The moment she creates emotional dissonance, she gains control, because now you're reacting. And whoever reacts first loses power. Women don't dominate through confrontation. They dominate through contrast. Hot and cold, close and distant, warm and indifferent. You try to solve the puzzle. You interpret her signals. You wonder what you did wrong. But the truth is, this isn't a puzzle. It's a test of emotional sovereignty. A man who can't sit in ambiguity will always bow to the unspoken. And here's the hard truth. Women have mastered this language because they've had to. For centuries, they've navigated societies where overt power wasn't given to them, so they developed covert influence, the art of tension, suggestion, and silence. And most men, they never saw it coming. That glance she gives you across the room, it's not just a glance, it's a summons. That slight touch of your arm during a laugh, it's not accidental. It's a seed planted. And when she suddenly becomes distant, distracted, busy, that's not disinterest. That's leverage. You start wondering if you said something wrong. You send the double text. You over-explain. You try to fix what wasn't broken. And now, you're beneath her. Not because she said anything, but because you reacted to everything. The language of the unspoken doesn't deal in facts. It deals in frames. And unless your frame is stronger than hers, you'll be pulled into hers without ever realizing it. Every room you enter, she's watching. Not your words, but your presence. Do you hold stillness? Do you flinch under her silence? Do you need her approval? Or does she need your attention? This is the battlefield now. Not swords, not screams, but subtlety. If you want to reclaim your power, you must master this invisible language. You must become the man who notices, but does not react, who sees the game, but does not play to please. Because when you stop dancing to her silent cues, she starts chasing the rhythm of yours. It's never just a joke. It's never just a question. And it's certainly never just a coincidence. When a woman wants to establish power over a man, she doesn't walk in guns blazing. She doesn't issue commands or lay out her dominance like a blueprint. No, she plays chess in a world full of men playing checkers, and her moves are disguised as everyday behaviors, small gestures, throwaway comments, and innocent mistakes that all point to the same thing: control. You ask her a direct question, she answers with ambiguity. You bring your full presence. She multitasks. You express your desire, she withholds hers, just enough to keep you uncertain. That uncertainty, that's not accidental. That's the lever. The moment you start wondering, what does she mean by that? She's ahead by 2 moves. Let's break down just a few of the most common power plays in disguise, because once you see them, you'll never unsee them. 1. Playful insults. She teases your outfit, mocks your opinions, makes a dig in front of others. She calls it humor, but it's a status check. She's testing whether you'll fold for approval or stand in indifference. If you get flustered, she's now above you. If you bite back, you're dancing to her tune. But if you remain unshaken, she feels it in her core. Second, strategic delays. You text, she replies hours later. You call, she forgot to respond. When she knows you're eager, she withholds presence. This isn't forgetfulness, it's timing control. She's measuring your patience, your emotional discipline, and whether your self-worth is tethered to her attention span. Third, comparative framing. Ever hear this? My ex used to do that too. Or, I have this friend who's so ambitious. These aren't random comments. They're psychological warfare, soft comparisons meant to make you perform harder, prove yourself more, and chase her validation. Fourth, faux vulnerability. She shares something deep early on, a trauma, an insecurity, a struggle. You lean in, you open up, you drop your guard. But later, that vulnerability evaporates, replaced by indifference or distance. This was never about connection. It was emotional bait to draw you into commitment before she does. And finally, fifth, silent withholding. This is the most lethal one. She pulls back affection without warning. The warmth is gone. The eye contact fades. No reason, no explanation. You chase, you analyze, you bend. But the truth is, she's asserting control without ever raising her voice. Here's the brutal truth. Most men don't even realize it's happening because the plays are wrapped in beauty, softness, and ambiguity. But if you pay attention, and more importantly, if you stop responding like a puppet, the spell breaks. This isn't about turning cold or bitter. It's about seeing clearly. She doesn't need to raise her tone to test your strength. She just needs to see if you flinch when the frame shifts, because that tells her everything. There's a method to her madness, and that madness is the method. Most men assume dominance looks like direct control. They think if she's not telling him what to do, she isn't in charge. But in the real psychological battlefield, the most effective way a woman controls a man is not by order, but by disorder, confusion, inconsistency, emotional turbulence. This is the fog where power flips. You see, a stable man can walk in a straight line, but if you disorient him, make him question what's real, what's true, what he did wrong, he'll bend, he'll chase, he'll submit. And women, especially the seductive ones, intuitively know this. Let's break it down. She tells you, "I'm not looking for anything serious," then gets jealous when you talk to someone else. She pulls away emotionally, but texts late at night just to check in. She laughs at your jokes, touches your arm, gives you eyes across the room, then says, "Don't overthink things, we're just friends." This is not lack of clarity, this is weaponized chaos. It's the art of making you seek definition while she remains undefined. And here's why that works. The one who defines the dynamic controls the dynamic. But when a woman refuses to define anything, she forces you to try. You analyze, you explain, you adjust, and that's when she owns the frame. It's like standing on a boat in rough waters. You think, if I can just find balance, she'll settle down too. But she's not looking for stillness. She's watching how well you struggle to stand. She's measuring your instability, your emotional need to fix it, your inability to hold frame under shifting tides. And if you can't, she knows she's above you. One of the oldest dominance tactics, used in warfare, interrogation, and yes, seduction, is disorientation. Flood the senses, break the rhythm, remove predictability. Why? Because a man who is emotionally disoriented becomes pliable. He second-guesses himself. He gives more than he should. He apologizes for things he didn't even do. Now she holds the remote. 1 minute she's warm, the next ice. One day she compliments your ambition. The next, she says you're too intense. She encourages you to open up, then criticizes your vulnerability. This roller coaster becomes the prison. And worse, you start to crave it. Because when the chaos breaks for even a moment of warmth, it feels euphoric. That's the addiction of chaos-based control. You're chasing a high she manufactured by first pulling you low. You're no longer yourself. You're a man on her emotional leash, just trying to get back to the place she showed you once. So here's the truth most men never hear. A woman doesn't have to overpower you to dominate you. She just has to confuse you enough to make you abandon your center. And if you don't reclaim that center, you'll mistake her inconsistency for passion, her withdrawal for mystery, and her chaos for love. You may think you're being kind. You may think you're being loving. You may even think you're being emotionally mature. But let me tell you the truth. Modern men don't want to hear, When you obey your emotions, especially when they're wrapped around her approval, you're not being strong, you're being domesticated. It starts subtly. She's upset. You drop everything to make her feel better. She gives you the silent treatment. You rack your brain to decode what you did wrong. She disapproves of your ambition, your friends, your hobbies, and you shift your life inch by inch just to avoid friction. And before you even realize it, you're not acting from your truth. You're reacting to her moods. That's not love. That's not respect. That's emotional obedience. And it's the slowest death a man can suffer. Because here's the trap. Every time you bend to accommodate her emotional waves, you're reinforcing the belief that her comfort matters more than your center, that your masculinity should be flexible, softer, more agreeable, that the prize is being the good man who listens, supports, adapts. But what's the hidden cost? You lose polarity, you lose presence, you lose her attraction. Women don't desire a man who responds like a pet to their every emotional signal. They crave the man who can feel their storm without becoming it, the man who can hold his frame, not because he's indifferent, but because his mission matters more than temporary approval. You think giving in will make her love you more, but every act of emotional obedience chips away at the very reason she was drawn to you in the first place, your inner authority. And when that's gone, she won't even respect the version of you she created. She'll resent him, because deep down, every woman knows, a man who follows emotion isn't leading, he's chasing. And nothing kills desire faster than a man who chases emotional security like a boy, begging for his mother's smile. Let's make this clear. Empathy is not weakness. Connection is not subservience. But the second you let guilt, fear of disapproval, or the need to keep the peace control your actions, you're not in a relationship. You're in a contract of emotional servitude. And here's the sick twist. She'll test you even more, not because she wants to hurt you, but because she's hoping you'll finally push back. She wants to feel your strength. She wants to see the fire. She wants to respect the man who won't betray himself just to make her smile. Because if you'll betray yourself for her, how could she ever trust you to protect her from the world? The cost of emotional obedience isn't just your pride. It's your purpose, your attraction, your masculine soul. And when that's gone, so is she. There comes a moment in every man's life when he looks in the mirror and doesn't recognize who's staring back. Not because he's aged, not because life's been hard, but because somewhere along the way, he lost his frame. He used to walk with intent, speak with weight, move through the world with the quiet force of someone who knew where he was going. But now, he's cautious, careful, measured not by his mission, but by how well he avoids conflict with her. And this is the moment most men crumble. But a few decide to reclaim everything they gave away. That's what this section is about. Because your frame isn't just your posture or tone of voice. It's not just a vibe. It's your energetic spine. The invisible boundary that says, I exist for more than approval. And once it's gone, everything collapses. Your respect, your clarity, your leadership. So how do you get it back? Step 1. Stop apologizing for being a man. Not the cartoon version of masculinity, not the arrogant bravado, but the grounded, focused, unmovable force of a man who's chosen purpose over comfort. The man who doesn't need to explain himself. The man who doesn't ask, is this okay? Before following his intuition. He acts, and the world reacts. Step 2. Make your values non-negotiable. Most men lose their frame because they've never defined one. What do you stand for? What do you walk away from? What is worth ending a relationship over? If your boundaries are made of paper, she will shred them, not out of cruelty, but out of instinct, because a woman must test to trust. And if you fail those tests, she won't even tell you. She'll just feel it. He's not the one. But when your values are forged in fire, every test becomes an invitation to lead. Step 3. Embrace tension. Don't fear it. A man with frame doesn't run from uncomfortable emotions. He lets her cry. He lets her pout. He lets her disapprove. Because he understands something weaker men never will. Comfort kills polarity. There's more electricity in holding eye contact during disagreement than there is in 1,000 sweet words spoken from fear. She doesn't need another emotional support animal. She needs a man she can lean on, not lean into and crush. Step 4. Live by internal metrics. When your confidence is built on how she feels about you, you'll always be performing. But when it's built on discipline, direction, and your own inner compass, you become untouchable. She can withdraw affection. She can withhold validation. She can test your edge, but none of it sways you, because your worth is no longer something she grants. It's something you embody. This is the unshakable frame, not arrogance, not resistance, but immovable clarity. The clarity to know when to walk, the strength to say no with silence, the presence to make her feel more by doing less. Reclaiming your frame isn't about control over her. It's about liberation from her control over you. And the moment you stop needing her to feel okay is the moment she feels safe enough to finally surrender. Because true polarity is born when the man leads with stillness and the woman, without a word, follows that current into his gravity. That is power. That is presence. That is the man she was hoping you'd become all along. If you've made it this far, you already know something most men never realize. It's not the words that dominate you. It's not the arguments, not the ultimatums, not even the outbursts. It's the silent expectations, the subtle shifts, the raised eyebrow when you say something she didn't like, the pause in her body when you didn't respond the right way, the quiet withdrawal of warmth when you stepped too far into your truth. This is the battlefield most men don't see, because there are no weapons, only responses, only compliance, only the slow erosion of who you were before you began performing. And that's what makes it so dangerous, because this domination doesn't look like control. It looks like love. It looks like compromise. It looks like you being the bigger man again and again, until you're no longer a man at all, just a softer version of who she can tolerate. But here's the truth. She doesn't want that version. She never respected him. She never felt desire for him. She never felt safe with him, because he had no edge, no will, no frame. She wants a man who can stare down her chaos and not flinch. A man who can hold his truth when her emotions flare. A man who doesn't need to raise his voice, because his energy already speaks louder than words ever could. If you've been silently dominated, emotionally neutered without knowing it, this isn't your fault. But staying there, that's a choice now. You reclaim your power not by fighting her, but by finding you again. Your mission, your backbone, your center. Let her signals come. Let her tests fly. Let her disapproval wash over you like waves crashing on stone. And stand, because the man who cannot be swayed is the man who commands the deepest respect. The man who never has to demand control, because he already has it. Not over her, but over himself. That's what this journey is really about. Becoming the man she can't dominate, because you no longer need her permission to be exactly who you are. If this video resonated with you, don't just scroll past. Hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel. You can support the movement using the link in the description. Thanks for watching.